All right. Well, welcome everybody. It's 12:01. Thank you for taking the time out of your day to be here with us. Really excited. We have a great turnout. There's a lot of advisors on right now watching this live. So wanted to start out just by saying welcome to the Advisor Advancement Mastermind Series. My name is Matt Eilers. I'm the Chief Business Development Officer here at USA Financial. And I'm really excited because today is going to be all about arming you with 45 minutes of value. And I know for many advisors on the East Coast, you're joining us over lunch. So thank you so much for that. And those in other time zones, you're taking time out of your day to spend with us. So that's our commitment to you, is to build in 45 minutes of value for your practice. And there's going to be some pretty cool takeaways, I think, that you'll leave today with. Before I introduce my colleague, Steve Phillips, I do want to just go through some quick housekeeping. What you're going to see in your Zoom screen is, if you look near the bottom, there's a Q&A button. And what that is it's a feature for you to put in questions for us. Now, we're not going to be taking any questions live throughout the presentation, but what we'll do our best to do is at the end of the presentation, if we've got a little bit of time left, we would love to dig into some of those questions and answer those live for you. Should we not be able to get to all of them, what we will do is we will follow up with you. Someone from our team will reach out and follow up with you individually. So just be sure that your question will be answered. And secondly, please be sure to stick around to the end. There is going to be a freebie for attending the event. So essentially, alumni of this webinar today, this discussion, we're going to arm you with a tool. And that tool is going to be something we're going to talk about in a little bit of detail here today. And it's an exciting one at that. So with that, I'd like to introduce my colleague, Steve Phillips. He's the Chief Practice Management Officer here at USA Financial, and Steve heads up our coaching and consulting division. So, Steve, it's safe to say that you are fairly engulfed in the world of practice management with advisors all over the country, have been for well over a decade, and you spend a tremendous amount of your time perfecting and elevating the client experience and helping them build out and implement systems and processes that help duplicate their best clients. And I'll kick it over to you, but essentially you're spending a lot of time with advisors helping them get better at their craft.
Yeah, Matt, great to be with you. Thanks. I know we've been looking forward to this one for some time. And you mentioned a couple of really good things there. Number one, I engulfed, submerged, totally entrenched, whatever you want to say, my 30th year in the business this year. Started in 91, and after 20 years as speaker, consultant, chief sales officer at a couple of organizations, the last 10, what we figured out was that true practice management, let's take it a step further and get away from the cliche of practice management. Let's talk business refinement, is really what has changed the dynamic for the advisors that we work with. And that's not cliche. And what's really cool is the collaboration that we have had over the years together, and now to be on the same team and solely focused on this. It's fantastic. The whole idea there of the title, let me jump on that really quickly. And you said something important there too. Transforming clients to advocates has always been a theme. And what we'll talk about today is, let's take that a step further. One of the things that I believe in deeply is that, practice management does a lot of things. And right at the top of the list, I think what it ought to do is compel best clients to duplicate themselves. And listen, with respect to, this is something that you just said, with respect to all the advisors that are on with us today, and the relationships that you've built, the relationships that you've maintained. It sounds bold, but take this in the spirit that it's meant. We really couldn't care less if your clients can talk about you. All of us that are on with us today know that your clients can. What we care about, what we're going to get into in this next 45 minutes, is whether or not those clients feel compelled to do so. And when they feel compelled to do so, it's what you said, Matt, they start to duplicate themselves. And what's really interesting now is 2020 was madness for everyone. We would have never said, if only we could get into a pandemic, and man, what an opportunity that will be. A lot of terrible things have happened in our country and to people that are suffering through different things. But it did, in fact, reveal an opportunity. And that's something that we're going to talk about. And you and I talked about this. Advisors get exposed to a lot of tools, a lot of webinars, a lot of conversations. And so in preparing for this, your thought was, let's begin with the end in mind. So if we can show results of what actually happened at USA Financial with advisors that grew in 2020, and then go through what those tools were, what those conversations were that helped them grow, and then revisit that at the end, now we'd be onto something. So let me throw it back to you and kind of walk us through what we see on the screen and what we're going to go through.
Absolutely. So it was funny, Steve, as you and I were having some discussion leading up to today's webinar, we were talking about the fact that looking back at 2020, there were some pretty interesting occurrences. And what you're seeing here on the screen, I'm going to talk about here in just a little bit more detail, but I am a fairly blunt, in your face type of guy, right? And I challenge things when I hear them. And sometimes I want you to prove it, right? Show me. This is about as transparent as we can get to help back up what I'm about to share with you. Obviously, we've grayed out the advisor names here on the left for privacy purposes, but what you're seeing here is just a quick snapshot into revenue that advisors affiliated with USA Financial have generated for themselves. So you can see some have been with us quite a long time. Some have joined in recent years. But what I wanted to show you is I wanted to show you what actually happened with the advisors that we support, with the advisors that we've partnered with the advisors that have taken some of the tools and systems and processes we're going to talk about today and infused them into their activities in 2020. And what I really want to do is zero in on 2019 versus 2020 here. So Steve, if you could advance the slide and we'll see what occurred. And this is what's really, I believe, compelling. If you go down that list, and now this is just individual advisors. So keep in mind, we work with many advisors that have multiple advisors inside the office. So this is just looking at advisors and individuals. So some offices, there could be 3-4 advisors in, but looking at just the individuals, and I could only fit 39 here on the screen. Everybody that you see a green highlight next to, they grew their business or they grew their revenue in 2020 over 2019. So the majority of the advisors at USA Financial, if you continue down this list, the majority of the advisors grew their business. And as we were having conversations, Steve, I thought to myself, man, just to throw a statement out like that, it's pretty hard to believe, especially if you're like most advisors that we're talking with that are out there in the industry. Most that we speak with right now, that wasn't the case. So
Yeah,
I wanted to back this up. Yeah,
right.
I wanted to back it up, and it's pretty interesting. Now, and what's even more, I think, incredible about seeing some of these numerics is knowing what 2020 was like, right? We've all been there. Goodness, we've been, if I have to hear the terminology unprecedented times one more time, I might lose all the hair I have left on my eyebrows. But no, really, you look at it, heading into March, we all had our idea of what 2020 was going to look like with our marketing plans and our business plans, and it just got kicked in the face. And, the way that we interact with our clients changed, was turned upside down. The way that we, do marketing or handle advertising and reaching out to the general public to bring in prospects, for many was completely turned upside down. I mean, live event marketing was eliminated. Clients were shut down in their homes. They weren't coming out to see people, right? And advisors were faced with some issues because the way that we ran our business for so long, all of a sudden just didn't work anymore. So what we observed through 2020 in the trenches with advisors as we're evolving through all this is there's really two reactions that an advisor can take. The first, and there's nothing wrong with either one of these, the first is many advisors we know have built up successful practices already, have good blocks of business with recurring revenue, and some of them were able to just hunker down and ride it out. And they're like, you know what? We might only make 75, 80% of what we made last year, but we're not really going to work that much, and our clients are going to be okay. They're not leaving. We're all right with that. And, for some, that was the approach they took.
What would have happened, we wonder, if those advisors, and there are some great practices out there that could hunker down. I wonder if we all thought this was going to go on for a year, if that would have changed some approaches there.
No kidding. I mean, right. What did we all hear? Just stay home for 2 weeks and we're going to get through this. And then it just, the carrot kept getting extended. So right. It was, the perspective and the timeline changed for so many as the ball was being moved. So that was the reaction we saw: hunker down, ride it out. The other was some advisors that realized, all right, we're going to take a little bit of the bob and weave approach. We're going to recognize some of the new opportunities that are out there. We're going to embrace it with open arms, and we're going to grow. And we know to do that, easier said than done, right? Because embracing some of this meant completely relearning tech, helping our clients relearn tech or learn for the first time tech. You rewind and think about this. The start of this pandemic wasn't even a year ago yet. If we rewind a year, how many of your clients were able to have a Zoom meeting with you and know what the heck to do? Now you look at fast forward, how many are able to get on and have FaceTime meetings with their grandkids, and they've done how many Zooms with other groups they're a part of. People understand it, but getting started, that wasn't something that advisors were well versed in, and how to teach people all that. Creating all the new systems and processes to humanize the client experience virtually, or to transact electronically, or to prospect digitally. All of that we weren't given a lot of thought to in our businesses. And what we know is that the biggest problem was that trying to create all of that isn't the strong suit of advisors, right? What's our strong suit? It's sitting in front of people and building trust and gathering assets and doing the work that we do to build their retirement, not creating technology to help us become more efficient, not turning our marketing digital on the turn of a dime. For a lot of us, because we were in the trenches, just trying to keep our clients sane through 2020, practice management had to take a back seat, right? But what we've identified is that advisors that did struggle in 2020, it wasn't because they weren't trying. What we've identified, it was because they weren't getting the support that they needed, and in many cases, the support that they deserve. And now as Steve said, we're beginning with the end in mind. We're going to come back and we're going to talk about this, but I wanted to tee the discussion up with this visual, because the tools that we're going to show you today and we're going to have some conversation about were absolute critical factors for every single advisor you see on this list that experienced growth in 2020. Absolutely critical. And we're going to talk about those things, and we're going to talk about how and why. And that's important, the how. We're going to get into that. And again, at the end of the discussion today, we're going to offer up a freebie to everyone that's here. We're going to put this in your hands, let you take it, use it. And that's what we're going to be spending some time on today.
Yeah. Matt, so that whole idea of beginning with the end in mind, that all of those points are so relevant. And, the industry, I think our industry has always been filled with cliches, and people can look back at 2020 and go, better communication, and I didn't get the support, and all those types of things. And those were real. But I want to take a little bit of a different tact before we get into what those tools are. And the first thing I'll say is there's no rocket science to any of this. We've learned through direct client interaction and client interactions that have made it up to us what people really respond to. And if you're following along with us today, I'd write down a couple of things. Number one, the words matter. Clients recognize when their advisor sounds and feels and is acting differently. The reason the words matter is because we're all about creating professional contrast, stand out. And we have found in 2020 more than ever, there was a human nature component to everything that was going on, and I'll touch on that. I wanted to bring up these two articles, and I made a slide out of them. The whole focus on communication and elevating the client experience, as Matt talked about. I thought this was really interesting. We were midway into the pandemic when Financial Advisor IQ came out with this, and there are a couple of key points. The gist of it really was that advisors were really starting to get concerned, big time concerned they were going to lose relationships, that people were going to fall off because of communication. And I thought, when I first read it, I thought, during the pandemic, advisors were like, we're going to lose clients. And I'm thinking to myself, who's going to quit the communication? Is that something that we expected to happen during the pandemic? People are like, oh my gosh, I'm homeschooling my kids. I've got to try to take care of parents that are ill, and I think I'm going to fire my advisor. I don't know where all of that came from. The top bullet was really important. And Matt, you mentioned that. The commitment to virtual and digital really changed the dynamic in 2020 for advisors and helped some of those advisors really, number one, increase leads and prospects, and number two, be able to communicate, as you said. And this is something that I'll share with advisors. You need to act like we're never going back in person. Of course we are. Of course we are. But I think you need to act like it and encourage your clients, as Matt said, to embrace this. So this was really interesting. 2020 pandemic makes sense if people are concerned, or does it? This is an article from 2013 that I taught about many years ago. Riskalyze did a study. It was 1,500 clients. 72% who said, I've left my advisor in, now if you don't remember 2013, S&P 500 was up over 28%. Pretty good year in the market. Things were going pretty well. We had recovered completely from the crash. And yet, seems that advisors had difficulty communicating with clients. And I wonder why that is. I don't think the human nature component for us is, I don't think that advisors quit or don't care or any of that. I think oftentimes we run out of things to say. Well, 2020, as Matt showed you, really gave us an opportunity to put in place things that we knew would work around the words matter and helping our clients, helping our advisor clients create professional contrast and elevate and perfect the client experience that they provide. Now, I said human nature component. You ought to write those three words down. This is something that became crystal clear in 2020. There is a human nature component to everything that we do and every conversation we have with advisors these days. It has to be, and advisors with clients, and that has to be accounted for. If you miss that component, you really miss the very reason we do what we do and a chance at creating that immense professional contrast. So what we're doing is kind of setting the table around what were the opportunities, perfect and elevate the client experience, the fundamentals of communication and a human nature component. Now, how did all of that come together? First thing I'll say is the goal here is not to get into the details of our coaching and consulting. I want to give you a snapshot of what has transpired. Tangible, real advisors doing real things. The first thing I'd say to you that we learned is, and we sort of knew this, your clients don't care about everything that you do. They take it for granted. And first of all, few of them can remember all the things that you provide. So the human nature component of my communication with my clients is to create a process where everything that I can provide over the life of a relationship would live. Many things that we provide not relevant to our clients at any one time, but we can share with clients that as their life unfolds, their needs evolve, good times, bad times, our process holds the solutions to everything. Now, when I think process, here's the thing. At the top of the screen, you see people, practice, process. Here's the reason that process is important. Professional contrast really does live here. As we've had interactions with clients over the years, here's how clients will describe their advisor. A great person, fantastic, responsive, skilled, knowledgeable. That's meaningful. Most everybody will describe their advisor that way. They'll describe the practice then. It's a great office, it's a great practice, it's a great team. They really run the business like a business. Many people describe their advisors' firms that way. Where's the differentiation? Where's the contrast? It is in the process. And for an easy way to remember, I think Michael Dell, person, Dell Computers, practice, Intel Inside, process. And yes, I know that Intel Inside doesn't live anymore exactly with Intel, but think of that. Think of that. That is the Dell Computer, Intel Inside, the process. How do your clients describe to friends and family members in a compelling way what you do, why you're different without having to talk about all the details? That's where it starts. Now, let me take a couple of minutes and show you what we do to bring that to life. And I'm going to share with you three different pieces that are actually client facing. And again, the goal here is not to bury you in the coaching and consulting over the next few minutes, but to give you a high level view of why clients really connected in 2020 and why so many of those advisors that Matt shared with you grew their practices. This is the front of a brochure that we've done for one of our key clients out on the West Coast. And there's a whole process around creating your brand. I'm not going to sell you a brand or a process. I'm not going to name it for you. That's not what our team does. If it comes from inside the firm, and here's what we found. Most of you already have within inside you why you're doing what you do, what it means to you, servicing your clients, your team, all those things. We have a couple of very specific processes to help you bring that to the surface We'll get it named. And then when you communicate it to your clients, you talk about compelling, it's personal, it's meaningful. It's about you, the person first, and then connects to your team and your process and what you do. When you open the brochure, it's pretty simple. Now, if I sat here quietly for 5 minutes and said nothing, which everybody that's on knows that's impossible, I think you could take a look at this brochure and kind of figure out what's going on. Imagine saying to your clients, we've added up all the things that we can do over the life of a relationship. It's like 60 or 70 things. And in fact, the average number of things that advisors we work with can provide. Think of everything: products, services, strategy and tactical meetings. You send birthday cards, you do a Christmas get together. It goes on and on and on. How many things? The average is 67. I just said a minute ago, we know from client interaction, they don't care. They take it for granted. What if you said to your clients, forget about the 67 things? We think it's kind of crazy too. So we boiled it down into what we call 7 pillars, and there they are around the circle on the left. You might say something to your clients like, we come to many of our relationships through wealth management. That's how we met you. It's an important part of what we do, but it is only one part of our process. There are other parts to our process, maybe relevant to you, maybe not. But as your life unfolds, things like risk management, both inside the portfolio, outside the portfolio. How about tax planning? We're not doing tax returns in our office, but we know the importance of tax efficiencies. Maybe we have a strategic partner. Legacy planning, cash management, and so it goes. And so now what you're doing is taking 67 things, you boil it down to 7, but then you say to your clients, even that's too much. Over all these years, we've learned a number of things. Among them, who we're suited to work for, who we fit best with, that we are our own best kept secret. I'll ask you all this question. If you're an advisor here, answer this question to yourself. If I could see you, I'd have you raise your hand. How many of you believe or think that your clients fully and completely understand and appreciate everything that you can provide? It ought to be rhetorical because it's impossible. So now you've gone from 67 to 7, and then you remind your clients. All of that lives with our proprietary process. And in this instance, we call it the base camp formula. On the right-hand side, I'm going to spend a minute because this is where we've been teaching this approach on the right-hand side, the where we live, what you can see, the Venn diagram there, for probably 7 years. And it's resonated for all 7 years, since 2013. And then 2020 happened. And then human nature component became necessary. Imagine sitting down with your clients, as you should, and saying that we have a foundational approach at our firm. What's really, it's focused on 2 things. Number one, what matters most to our clients and what we can control. Below the matters, you see the why around financial planning. We've talked about things, family, occupation, recreation. We have advisors that talk about family. Maybe it's investment, legacy, or succession issues. It's occupation. Some of your clients have their retirement date written down on the calendar. Others want to achieve a work optional lifestyle. What about the recreational bucket list? You're going to buy that island in 10 years and whatever it might be. 2020 provided an opportunity for the human nature component to exist. And here's what I'll say to you as an advisor. We've heard from clients, why doesn't my advisor act like he or she is in this too, that stuff is happening to them? What matters most to our clients is issues around family. We've been homeschooling our kids. I bet you have. What's going on in your community? What about friends and family or family that have been confined, that are ill, that we don't get to see? God forbid, some of your clients have lost family members. Do you have a personal story this year that resonates with you? Communicate that. That's a human nature component. And then share with your clients. We never lose sight of where we're going. These are things that we have to get through. We will together. It remains a part of our process. Occupation, work optional lifestyle, hardly. People have been furloughed. They've been laid off. They've had income reductions. Act like you know what's going on. It's a human nature component. And I can tell you it resonated loudly in 2020. And then, of course, we're going to get to the recreational bucket list. We're not going to lose sight of that. These are foundational things to our firm that we work with diligently with our clients. And then, of course, on the other side, what we can control. Guess what we can't control? Issues around COVID-19. But this is what we know. One day, COVID's going to be in the rearview mirror. That's what history tells us. We know that that's going to happen at some point. And when that happens, we know that our clients will continue to feel like there's always something out of their control. So in our firm, we focus on what we can control. That's our philosophy around everything financial. We take a panoramic approach to it. Our planning strategy has to be fluid and dynamic, especially in these times. And then, of course, our proprietary process. And where those two things overlap, what matters most to our clients and what we can control, that's where we live. That's our process. Now, 30,000 feet there, I don't expect you to repeat that back, but I want it to resonate with you as an advisor, how deeply it resonated with clients. Human nature component abounds here. Don't expect me to remember all the details. Talk to me like a person. You're living through this as well. It really made a difference. And it is one of the key tangible pieces that we provide when we do our coaching and consulting, and we coach to that.
Hey, Steve, real quick, what really, what I love about that most, looking at that piece, which was from one of the advisors in that list that grew their business in 2020, ironically, it's so interesting that what their clients are compelled to talk about is this base camp formula, right?
Yeah.
Something that speaks to that human nature component. But what's even more interesting was what you didn't mention at all. You didn't mention products. You didn't mention pricing. You didn't mention performance.
Well said.
And what we're arming them with something that's so different and refreshing, really, because we're not focusing on all that stuff and we're making this different. No one else has the base camp formula in Tahoma. We know that.
It's a really good point, Mac, and thanks for backing us up a second. Here's the other thing, too, about the whole idea of people practice process, and the base camp formula is unique. So the human nature component is, if I love something in my life, it's a good bottle of wine, there's a new restaurant that opened, or we've played the new golf course, or whatever it is. Oh, if you haven't seen The Queen's Gambit on Netflix, you've got to go see that. I love that. If I have something that's meaningful or important to me, don't I share that with people I care about in my life? Of course. And here's what we've heard from clients. I love my advisor. I have a great relationship, but she's left me to talk about, as you said, Matt, products, pricing, and performance. 1, I don't get it. 2, it's kind of awkward and uncomfortable. 3, and perhaps most importantly, all my friends and family members have an advisor that focuses on products, pricing, and performance. I don't get validated or credit for introducing my advisor, who sounds just like your advisor. So you made a couple of good points then, and coming back to that and where the professional contrast actually lives. We talked earlier about compelling best clients. Listen, every practice I've ever worked with, 80-20, the Pareto principle, 80% of your revenue generated by 20% of your clients. It is that 20% that not only we want to duplicate, but we have found in interactions, we'll raise our hand and say, yes, I will duplicate myself if I know what to say and how to do it. Now, let me be clear here. We're not disrespecting the other 80%, not at all. Those people are foundational to the growth of a firm. And every advisor sort of bristles with the idea if they think that's where we're going. It's not. But duplicating ideal clients and best clients is key. So one of the pieces that we put together, and we've worked through this for several years, is to define your ideal client. This also becomes a piece. We've also done what we call an ideal client reception. When we're back in person, it's amazing. It's not a workshop. It's not a seminar. It's not an appreciation event. The words matter. Reception. We're now doing these virtually. You can do these and get people connected on Zoom, where you gather together your ideal clients. How do you describe your ideal clients? Listen, I get it. Assets matter. That's why I read the book. I don't disrespect that at all. I understand. Here's what we know, though. Clients aren't going to go out and share, hey, you know what? If you got $250,000 of investable assets, my guy, Matt Eilers, is the one. People don't talk like that. They don't want to. And in fact, they don't know the details of their friends' money. So what if you describe your best clients by attitudinal qualities? And in this case, another live advisor that's done well with our process, there it is. What types of people are you best suited to partner with? Maybe they're respectful of you and your team and the work you do. They value your advice. Perhaps they're gracious people. They have gratitude for today and aspiration for tomorrow. And there it is. The human nature component here, gang, it's birds of a feather. People tend to hang out with other people who are just like themselves. Well, as an advisor, if I go to great lengths to define my ideal clients by attitudinal qualities, and right at the top of the page, I say, you're an ideal client, and here's what makes you so. Well, I'm thinking to myself, my friend Matt, he's just like me. He must also be an ideal client. I better get to introducing him to my advisor. And now I know how. I'm going to talk about the process, which in turn is going to make me look different. I get to introduce something that my friends don't have. So the whole idea around creating professional contrast, identifying ideal clients, and communicating to them is very meaningful. But this might be the piece that really turned 2020 on its ear for us. And this is the piece that Matt referenced to that we want to share with you. The difference between clients proacting for you or reacting. The difference between just talking about you or being compelled to communicate on your behalf. And bigger than all of those is the difference between being referred and being introduced. How many of you listen? You consider yourself referable? I'll bet most of you do. I'll bet all of you are. Has this ever happened to you? Where a client said, you know what, my best friend, his name is Matt Allers. I've told him about you. He's just going to be perfect. I'm sending him over. He's going to call you anytime. I gave him your contact information and your card. His name is Matt. Expect to hear from him. Hey, Matt, I want you to call my advisor person, and you're just going to love him. He's great. Tell him I sent you. 4 months later, you're asking me, hey, Steve, where's your guy, Matt? I didn't hear from him. Has this ever happened to you? I know you're nodding your head. Of course. That's a referral. I meant well as your client. I said nice things about you. I intended to have my friend come over, but I just didn't care about the outcome. It wasn't real. I don't really know what's going to happen in a first appointment. I'm not putting myself in the process. What if, and let me ask you this, is there any, your longest tenured client, 15, 20, 25, 30 years, maybe longer, is there any good way to go back to that very best client and ask for a referral without it sounding like a favor that you're asking for? There's not. So let me throw this out to you. What if we position everything we do as a service to our best clients? What if the very idea of introductions was positioned as a service to our best clients? And we said something like, look, to our best clients, look, conversation would be, it's tough times. But I know that you feel some anticipation about the future. We'll get through it together. We feel the same way. We know that's because of our process. But as we talk to our best clients, many of them have shared with us that they have friends and family members who don't feel this way. They're apprehensive, if not freaked out about the future. So many things going on. And while over the years, it's always been our approach to offer different services to our best clients, 2020 really provided us an opportunity. So we thought, if you have a friend or a family member who's a little apprehensive about the future, and we could sit down with them just to have a conversation, to be a sounding board for them, to talk about the future, not the financial future. That's what all of your competition says. That's very cliche. You're going to sit down and say, we are happy to talk to them about the future. Give them a sense of peace and calm. We're happy to do that. And listen, not only do they have to become a client to receive the service, they cannot become a client in that first meeting. That's not the purpose of the meeting. The purpose of the meeting is a service to you, our best client, to sit down with somebody important to you, share our process, help them feel a little peace and a sense of calm about the future. Now, I can pull the statistics, but I know anecdotally, because of the work that we do, more than 80% of the sounding board appointments that were had in 2020 actually turned into clients. This is a client-facing piece. You see it right there. Nothing that we do embarrasses us, embarrasses you, is inappropriate to share with a client. Right on top of that client-facing piece, your clients will remember saying it to you, and then when they go home and read it, it's going to say, as a part of our process and a service to our best clients, we'll make ourselves available as a sounding board. There it is. And then 5 very simple steps. Share the contact information of the person that you care about. Tell us the relevant information. Share our contact information with them. Let them know we're going to be sending a kit. Let them know we're going to reach out on your behalf. We're doing this for you. Set up an appointment, and so it goes.
Steve, I love this piece.
Yeah, go ahead, Matt.
I love this piece because of the positioning. I mean, if I would have told you before we got to this part, everyone that's watching today, that our advisors are more referable than ever, and they got all these referrals in 2020 without having to ask for referrals, I don't think you would have completely understood until you heard how it can be positioned differently. It just turns the positioning upside down. Rather than, hey, client, do me a favor, it's, hey, client, how can I do you a favor and position this as a service to you? So
and that's a great way to say it, Matt. That's a great way to say it. And you're right. And listen, the human nature component from coaching and consulting and USA to you, our advisors, is this. It's a little clunky at first. You're not used to saying this, but it doesn't take more than a conversation or two for this to become very succinct, and clients respond to it. So, Matt, and we've had at least two, our number one advisor from last year who told us, couldn't wait to tell us that the back of his business card now says appointment by introduction only, that he simply can't take on any more new clients. And he was wondering if he's going to get back to marketing late in 2021, the flow of clients. And that brings us to a point here. I'm all about client acquisition. I would tell you that if you're a seminar person or a workshop person, probably the best program in the industry resides at USA Financial. But then let's think about this. Why do we spend all of our time, energy, budget, experience, and resources trying to convince new people? There's a time and a place for that, certainly. But what about teaching the already convinced to convince others on our behalf? Those two acquisition initiatives work really well side by side. So, and this again, Matt will refer to this a little bit later. That's the piece that we want to get to you. And listen, before I turn this back over to Matt, every webinar that you're ever on, every conversation you ever have with a firm is going to say, listen, we've got a body of work. We're 30 years old. We're 20 years old. We have best practices. We know what works for you. Why do we know that? Because it's worked for everybody else. I don't know that that's appropriate. I think it's kind of ridiculous, actually. What we recognize is this. The collective experience of all of us at USA Financial has told us a few things, one of which is that every advisor goes through typically 3 phases, their practice does, on its journey to evolution. And so acquisition, getting the thing off the deck, acquiring new clients, really getting the thing rolling. And some of these phases overlap. There are challenges with each of these phases, but also amazing opportunities. Where we find most of our advisors is in the middle, the expansion mode. They've done well at establishing a practice. Now they need to create scale. They need to create efficiencies, perhaps hire new staff, bring on a junior advisor. It's a key moment. Big challenges, bigger opportunities. And then finally, succession. Legacy. Am I going to sell the thing? Am I going to hand it down? Listen, before any of the things that we can do at USA Financial mean anything to you, we need to know where you are. What's happening in your practice? Specific to you. And then we can build the model around that. So one of the things that we'll do, and I'll just run through this quickly, some of you have probably done a gap analysis. Once we have an initial conversation, and Matt will talk about this, I want you to get a little intimate with us and share with us as much as you're comfortable about your practice. This is a live exercise. We'll ask you to take 45 minutes to an hour, not on the phone, but off in a corner in your office someplace by yourself, and send it back to us. We want to know some things. How do you it's fundamental is how do you describe yourself to clients? Is there professional contrast there? Are you collecting data? We talk about family, occupation, recreation. Are you collecting the data? What do you do with it? And here's what we're looking for. Broken practices. Not at all. Don't even assume that. What we're looking for is what we call opportunity gaps. The things that you're already doing well, that with the minor adjustment will lead to major improvements. And it goes on. Do you classify clients? And if you classify clients, do you put a service matrix together? These are the things that start to identify for us opportunities for us to partner together. This particular instance, we wealth management, practice management, relationship management. We'll ask you, how do you rate yourself on 1 to 10? This particular advisor said 3. 150 households, only 5 best clients. Probably one of the most personable advisors, professional, easy to get along with we've ever met. This wasn't a broken thing. It was a matter of a small tweak. And on it goes. What about getting referrals? We'll talk introductions. Referable, and only got 3 referrals in 2019 before he came over to us. And so it goes. All of the things on the gap analysis are put together to help us identify where we can help the practice grow. And at the end of 2021, you'll be in the green. And I'm going to have you share with us. Listen, one of the things, what do you expect this to do? Matt myself, our teams, the company, we're not going to tell you. You tell us. What are the expectations? And let's see where this partnership can go together. So, Matt, let me turn it back over to you as you kind of walk through how we begin this and where it leads with advisors that want to get started, perhaps.
Certainly. So no secret to it. We have a process as well. We've been preaching that here for 41 minutes, but there is a process. And we know that there's a number of advisors that, you're sitting there, you're watching today, and you're thinking to yourself, well, maybe I flatlined in 2020, and that's not what I wanted, or maybe things went backwards, or maybe I grew a little bit, but there's something was missing, and you'd want to continue the conversation with us. So I believe in transparency, and want to let you know, if you would like to continue the discussion with us, this is what it looks like. Good news here: there's no big sales pitch coming. There's no big sales pitch coming at the end of our discussion here today. I'm not trying to sell you anything. However, if you want to learn more about who USA Financial is, and I'll talk about that a little bit more here in just a moment as we wrap up. But if you want to learn more about us and how we've helped these advisors that grew their business in 2020, it just starts with a fit call. Let's just have a chat. It's a casual call. All we're going to do is we're going to get to know you a little bit, ask you some questions, give you opportunity to do the same, just to find out if it makes sense, if we should have another discussion. And what's neat, and I'm glad we were able to share some of this here today, is if we decide, yeah, it makes sense, we should probably keep kicking the tires a little bit. The next step in that process is the gap analysis. We'd invite you to go through that. And it's really interesting because Steve made a comment earlier. We're not looking for, broken practices and things that need to be just completely overhauled. We're not trying to change the way that you do your business. We're just looking for small tweaks. We're looking for those small hinges that we know can swing big doors. And essentially what the gap analysis reveals to us is whether or not our expertise is a good match for what you're trying to accomplish. And going through this process will give you a little bit of a taste of the consultative approach that we take here at USA Financial and how we partner with and how we help our advisors. And, beyond that, if that conversation turns into, hey, I want to hear from you more, and I want to learn more about what that could look like for my practice in alignment with USA, we've got a discovery experience that we can chat with you about. And what that is it's a deeper dive. That's where you get to really look under the hood, kick the tires. You're going to get to take a more thorough approach to understanding all the different elements that actually apply to your business. And essentially, we would take you through some custom consulting and really let you walk in the shoes as if you were a client of our firm. And let you experience the value gap blueprint and the marketing plan and everything that we're going to build out for you as a part of that process. So that's what it looks like for us. And, when we started here in the beginning, talking about, beginning with the end in mind, we're back here at this image and you look at these advisors in green. And I think what's incredible, just to point out, is that they were the ones that did recognize opportunity. They did embrace it. And, before, where it says introducible, it said referable. These advisors are now more introducible than they've ever been. And they weren't asking for referrals as a part of that process. We saw this happen in 2020, and it was incredible. But we knew that for those that didn't experience this out in the industry, that have been grinding through a really difficult year, their years didn't look like that is because of the support that they couldn't find, that they weren't getting help. And you're probably wondering at this point, who the heck are these guys, right? Who is USA Financial? I mean, are they a coaching consulting firm? Are they a broker dealer? Are they an RIA? Are they an FMO? Are they a TAMP? Are they a tech company? Are they a marketing firm? The answer is yes. We are all of those things. And this is just a brief overview of who USA Financial is. But it's not about what all of the entities we have under the roof here are. Yes, we have a BD, we have multiple RIAs, we have a TAMP, we have an FMO, we've got a coaching division, a marketing division, a tech company. It's not about the fact that we have all those. It's about the fact that of what all of those do for the advisor. And while those four entities you see at the top here are how business flows through USA Financial, it's all about the bottom three that we partner with advisors to help them drive that business. It's about the tools, the systems, the processes, the technology. And we've been building all that out for over 30 years to help advisors gather more assets that look like what you see here: commissionable securities, insurance, AUM. And you're probably thinking to yourself, man, with a company that's been around for 30 plus years and have all these different entities, there's got to be thousands of advisors there. How the heck would I fit in? And I want to show you this because this really sums up and tells the story of USA Financial. We don't have thousands of advisors that we work with, and that's completely by design. What we've built here, and what you'll see, you look back into 2004, there was a time when we did, and that was a critical point in the history of USA Financial when we made the decision that, you know what, at that point we were getting stretched a little bit. We were having to go a mile wide and an inch deep into the practices of the advisors that we partnered with. We couldn't go that deep into their business. We couldn't intimately know every system and process they have and everything they were doing. So we said, you know what, we need to align with the advisors that were best suited to help. True planners, advisors that aren't just slinging one product, that are gathering all assets, that are investing money into their business, that are trying to build a scalable asset, that and trying to grow enterprise value and believe in marketing and believe in practice management, and are coachable and likable and fun. And so what we did in 2004 was we realigned, and we stuck with 250 some odd advisor offices, and you can see the rest is history. That blue line is USA Financial's revenue ever since. And that blue line is nothing but a pure reflection into the advisors that we've partnered with. So at this point in time, we work with around 250 advisor offices. And it's that approach that's allowed us to go an inch wide and a mile deep. This is how we're able to do all these things that we've been sharing with you, and how we're able to see all these practices that have actually grown in 2020. It's because of this unique structure. It's because we can. So just know, if you'd like to chat with us, guess what? We're not going to ask you to switch firms on the phone. That's not what we're doing. We just want to figure out if there's something that you're looking for that we might be able to help for. As you can see with all those entities, there's a lot of different ways to affiliate. We can have a conversation with you about if there's a fit. And as promised, as we're starting to wrap up here, I know we're about 2 minutes over. This is the piece that we want to arm you with. We talked about the sounding board process. I believe this is one of the most important tools that our advisors used in 2020. And as our promise to you, as a thank you for you taking the time out of your day to join us, we're going to get this in all of your hands. So look forward to our team reaching out to you, and we're going to reach out. We're going to get this in your hands. We're going to walk you through and talk with you about some of those advisors, some of the tools they use, answer any questions you have. And some of those conversations might turn into a fit call. That's great. And if they don't, we wish you the best, and we really thank you for being here. So with that, Steve, I just wanted to thank you for your time, and I wanted to thank you for sharing the insights and the discussion, and also a thank you to everybody that took the time out of your day to spend with us. So, Steve, any parting comments before we wrap this up and see if we have
great to be with you, Matt, and I love the collaboration. And no, I think that the parting comments were beginning with the end in mind, and how well you and your team put those pieces together, and everybody at USA. So to everyone on here, I'll add my thanks for the time. You never take that for granted. An hour out of your day is a big deal, and we'll look forward to having the next conversation with you.
Awesome. Hey, Steve, we have a handful of questions here. I think we could try and take two real quick.
Sure.
Couple ones that are jumping out at me. And again, if you've asked something, we're not going to be able to get to all of these. We'll hang around for another couple of minutes for those of you who want to stick around with us. Also, we'll have a recording of this that we'll be able to get out so you can rewatch it. But Steve, a question here. I already have a brand for my practice. Do you think that do we need to be thinking about changing the brand, or what does that mean if we feel like we already have an established brand out in the market?
Great question. And thanks for communicating that over, Matt. So no, typically that's the people practice. We know that most of the advisors we work with have an established brand, the company name. That's not what we have had maybe 6 or 7 or 8% of the advisors we engage with ask us, hey, what about renaming the company? And in fact, the Base Camp formula was an organization we did that with at USA Financial. But typically, no. Your company brand, been around for years. We're not going to mess with that. What we're going to do is sort of build from scratch the brand around your process.
Awesome.
That's
Thank you.
Question.
Another one here. So do you just build these pieces that we saw, and is there like a manual to how to do that? Or the question is really, is there coaching on these pieces do you get into the weeds on that?
Yeah, though that's a great one too. Here's what we know with advisors: if we leave you to your own devices, it'll never work. Not because you're not smart, not because you don't care, but because you're busy. So the answer to that question is we implement every single piece. We have a very deep consulting and coaching program that we implement over months with you as we're building the pieces to make sure that the communication in front of the client resonates. And then we have bolt-on coaching and consulting that can continue on from there. So another really good question. Nope, you're not in it by yourself.
Awesome. Very good. Well, with that, I know there are more questions here that we are not going to be able to get to today. Again, we will be in touch with you, a senior business development consultant from our team. We'll be reaching out to arm you with the sounding board process document to answer any questions that we weren't able to get to. But again, thank you so much for your time. Thank you, Steve. We're at 52 minutes, so we're going to wrap this up, let you get back to your days. But again, we really appreciate you taking some time out of the business to work on the business here over lunch. And just as a note, we are going to be having another one of these sessions next month in February. And when our senior business development consultants reach out to you today, we'll get you the information on the dates, the times, and how to get registered for that one as well. But again, thank you so much. And we wish you all a great week. Take care.
Thank you.